Not bad. Okay, we are so excited to have this many people here. This is our biggest crowd probably ever. It's so good. So every single lecture we have and we have had is always really good. The topics are really good. It's very historic. But I will say, of the ones that we've had before and just the people who commented on it and are really interested in it, Vickie's talk is right up at the near the top, if not at the top. People are so interested in this. So we were so excited that she was able to come back. And so I'm going to introduce her now. This is Vickie Bryant, and she is a historian at the top of the O'Hill Terrace. Woo!
Usually I need a microphone. Should I use a microphone?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
Good. All right, so if you get the lights, he's going to get it in just a moment. It is good to be with you, and I always like to tell everyone, here I am, a Baptist preacher's wife, telling the story of the casino. And, my husband and I, we've been married 56 years to this day. We've never allowed a deck of cards in our house. But me doing the tours for 20 years and working on top of the hill for 25, I've been telling the story thousands of times. I've been working with the Visitor Bureau for 20 years. We're like one big family. And in 2022, they wanted to FaceTime me. They were holding the new Arlington Visitor Guide. And look at who made it on the cover. And I'm in everyone's way. Let me get over here. Okay. So I thought that year I'm going to relax. Well, that didn't happen, but I was able to get through that, and I was very thankful for the coverage we got there. And so anyway, did you know that, who knows anything about TripAdvisor? Anyone? That app on your phone, and you see what places are being recommended. On TripAdvisor, a number of years ago, I put Top of the Hill on there. And soon after that, I looked, we were number 3, Six Flags number 4. So I've been encouraging everyone through the years to go there, rate the tour, help Top of the Hill to move to number 1, to be the Cowboy Stadium. And look at where we've been holding. And the Visitor Bureau help and TripAdvisor, it's bringing people in from all over the world. And so usually if you come in for the tour at Arlington Baptist University, the tour takes 2 hours. And so I have to do a more condensed version today. So I decided to play this video at the beginning to tell you a little bit about our story in a nutshell. And let's make sure I didn't check this to see if it was going to come. There we go. Turn it up. You might come see if you can turn it up. Maybe I can hear it.
You want a chair to sit in, Vickie, while it's playing?
I didn't hear it.
Oh no, maybe I spoke too soon.
This is when you use a lot of different equipment, this happens. Try it again. I don't know. Just need to turn it up, so all we need to do. Anyone have any questions while we take care of this minor problem?
Where do we find you?
Where?
TripAdvisor.
Top of the Hill is the grounds where Arlington Baptist University is located, 3001 West Division. And the school's been there since 1956, and I have someone in every day. We didn't know you all were here, so we've only been there all these years. Okay, here we
There
go.
we go.
Perfect timing.
There were people that came from all over the United States. Howard Hughes, Lana Turner.
It was on the circuit of places for celebrities to visit and see who's here and be seen.
And you had to be an invited guest. This was the place to gamble. 50 to 100 people would be here.
They'd have $500 come through that front gate.
You got the 1930s, pressure was brought to bear in Austin to approve pari-mutuel betting. Arlington Downs, which is a racetrack, was already here in Arlington, been here since 1929. Well, since you couldn't bet at the racetrack, you didn't really get the high rollers and the excitement and the money moving that you would get with pari-mutuel betting.
Arlington Downs was one of the best tracks in the United States at that time. The grandstand was palatial. It would seat thousands and thousands of people. The parking area was large enough that thousands of cars could be parked there. There were people that came from all over the United States. They flew in, they came by car.
The focus is put here because it's the only legitimate racetrack gambling in, if not in Texas, certainly in North Texas, which means high rollers, which means big bucks. Coinciding with this, as wide open gambling disappears, the new kind of gambling is casino gambling. Casino's a nice way of saying behind closed doors, you got somebody on the watch at the door, you know, the old knock on the door, certain knocks, Charlie sent me, that kind of stuff. So gambling still goes on, but it's back rooms, it's upstairs rooms, and casino sounds nicer.
The people that came to Top of the Hill Terrace were among the same people that visited Arlington Downs. They would go to Arlington Downs during the day, and then they would travel down the Bankhead Highway to Top of the Hill Terrace and visit it in the evening.
The main room was for card players, bridge players, and then roulette and dice, and blackjack.
On the weekends, there were no hours. It was open around the clock. They just rotated the dealers and kept everybody working.
No, you could come through there any time of the day you want. Many people know where it was, but you'd have to have so much money to get in there. You couldn't get in there with $20. You'd have $500 come through that front gate. Yeah, them people had money.
Celebrities, the big ones are always looking for the new place, the in place. And if they hear that there's now big time horse racing in Fort Worth and oh, this is a little place a couple of miles away, Top of Hill Terrace, they're gonna come see it. It's where the beautiful people are going.
The casino took in about $200,000 on a weekend easily. Then I heard later on, would go up to a quarter to $500,000.
Down under there where they gamble at, they had a tub down there, you know, where they throwed off the change. I'd go by, I said, man, I need some money. Go down there and get you 2 handfuls of change. That's all you get, come on out with it. They partied, people had money, they partied all the time.
Warrant is now being written for you to ring the Top of the Hill Terrace. I said, the Top of the Hill Terrace, out there this side of Arlington. It is the highest society gambling place. That's the crowd you need to get after.
J. Frank Norris was the cutting edge of the fundamentalist Protestant movement in the United States, 1920s and 30s. He brought a great deal of attention to Fort Worth, some good, some bad. Everything he said, everything he did was attention grabbing. J. Frank Norris never met a headline he would want. He was a master of the soundbite, and he was always in the news. So he used the bully pulpit of First Baptist Church to, you pick which one's a priority, make a name for himself, and to fight the good cause.
We are sending a man out with a special warrant. The grand jury has asked you to raid the top of the Hill Terrace.
Dr. Norris got some constable, and they came out here in 1933, and he conducted his own raid here. And he had his son bust through the front gates with his car to gain entrance here.
That particular night, I went to bed and I slept until about 9 o'clock that next morning, and I couldn't hear anybody in the dining area or kitchen, which was unusual. And I went out and looked around, and I started down the stairs into the basement where the gambling was, and a sheriff or deputy met me. He was coming up the stairs, and he said, "Who are you?" And I answered, and he says, "I think you better go back to bed." So I went back to the bedroom, and that was the end of it. But later I found out that it had been a raid.
Went in there and took all the tables, all the gambling paraphernalia, and loaded on those two trucks, and brought it into the grand jury, and brought in the carloads of the men and women who were out there gambling.
This tunnel here was an escape tunnel from the casino, and this casino was very high-tech for back then. He had it fixed so if a raid was taking place within minutes, Fred Browning could convert it over to look like a dining room. He had a roulette wheel on the wall, and the wall would turn where they could hide the roulette wheel. They had gaming tables that fold up into the wall. And there was a cue stick rack that was fake, and you'd bend over, stick a key in the electrical socket and turn it, and it would release this rack to reveal a secret room where they could push your gambling equipment.
They closed up several times from pressure, you know, here and there, like they hauled all the material off one time, all his merchandise or his paraphernalia, whatever you would call it. And if they didn't stay closed long, he'd open up again. But in 47, they shut him down for good.
Lone Wolf Gonzalez and the Texas Rangers hid behind one of the cars trying to get in the front gate, and they opened the gate to let the car in, and so Lone Wolf Gonzalez got on the property.
Said the Rangers are here. Well, what can you do? Send them up. They already had somebody up there that got over the fence, and the rest of them won't come through the gate, so send them up.
The gamblers would run out this tunnel and run along the land here up into the tea garden where they had food and drinks planted. Fred Browning was up and running again, but people just didn't come back. They were afraid to.
Top of the Hill Terrace. Went in there and took all the tables, all the gambling paraphernalia, and loaded on those two trucks, and brought it into the grand jury. It broke up that place.
Who's T.R. Marshall?
He owned the property before Fred Browning got the property. It was a tea room. So anyway, when the school moved to the property, they wanted to get rid of everything. This was in 1956. And the reason why is the casino just closed down, the mafia got involved at the end. And a number of years ago, I got up enough nerve to put 2 mafia families' names in the program. Had 2 Kennedy researchers in. After that, they said take those names out. So as soon as I walked through the door, I couldn't run fast enough to my laptop to delete the names. I had to be careful how I tell a story, what I reveal, because I can put my life in danger. A couple of times taking me down a road I didn't need to be going down, so I just back off of that and tell our story. So even though back in '56 they didn't want anything saved from the casino, and I understand that, for some reason the president of the seminary did save this dog collar. And when my husband moved in as president there in 1993, he handed the collar over to him like it was a torch. Right here it is, worn by a big black police dog. These spikes are very sharp for 2 reasons. That way you couldn't get the dog down and choke it to death, and when dogs fight, they go for the neck. I've been telling everybody, if you want to dress in that Gothic look, I'll loan this to you. Anyway, I'm going to show you what this ID tag says. And I was surprised, I'm sorry I keep getting in your way, but I'm surprised he put his name on it because he was very private. He wouldn't let people take pictures of him or pictures inside the casino. So one day I got a call from a lady. She said my mother came in last week for the tour, said she came home talking about Top of the Hill. She said my husband and I, my mother and father-in-law, are getting ready to move from our ranch here in Weatherford. We each have something from Top of the Hill. We want to know, are you interested? And what they had, the rancher had 2 roulette wheels from Top of the Hill. And I told him, I was hoping he was going to donate them. He didn't offer to. And I said, well, how much do you want for them? He said, I have to have $1,500 a piece. And I told him, I said, I have no funding, but I can make payments. So the first 12 payments I made out of my salary. And it wasn't long after that we had a fellowship meeting, and some of our graduates or pastors and missionaries came in for the tour and found out I'm making these payments out of my salary. So a missionary from Ecuador said, I'll make your next payment. A missionary from Brazil said, I'll make your next one. 7 pastors sent me a payment, and they don't gamble. But they know this was part of our history. Dovetail wood, he could have sold them to museums, $15,000 a piece. I've been offered $20,000 for one. But I had a guy in from England, and I'm having people in from all over the world, from all walks of life, both sides of gambling issue. I asked this guy from England, I said, what do you do for a living? He said, I run an online gambling website. I said, interesting. So we got done with the tour. The guy was so excited in his strong British accent. He said, in England, we have all this history. He said, when I come to the United States, I can hardly find it. And I'm sure he's talking about illegal gambling history. So he said, what y'all are doing here is absolutely fantastic. So this wealthy man wanted to buy one. I said, they're not for sale. He said, you don't know how much I'm willing to pay. But I said, if the Texas Ranger in museum in Waco ever needed a roulette wheel, I was going to loan another one. We had this one on display when you come in for the tour. So they called me on it a couple of years ago. They took the roulette wheel back with them, and it's on display there, the only roulette wheel in the whole museum. The liquor bottles over here on the left are from Top of the Hill. Did you ever wonder why some of the liquor bottles are concave?
Correct peanut butter?
Nope. And everybody goes duh when I tell them to fit in your boot. Term bootlegging. So yeah, the score sheet, matchbook, and poker chip are from Top of the Hill. Now my husband's pastor, and again, he went with me to pick up the roulette wheel, so we're driving out of this ranch. They're sliding around the back of his pickup. I looked over at him, I said, did you ever think we would be doing this? And he said, never. So he's my cohort in crime. Some of the famous visitors that came to the Top of the Hill. I had a young couple in last week from Colorado. They were in their 20s. And I said, who do you think would be the most likely person to come to the Top of the Hill? She was serious. She said, Beyonce. I could not believe she was serious. But that wasn't Beyonce, it was Bonnie and Clyde. I had 4 real estate agents from Dallas in, and one of them said my grandparents had a 10-acre farm here in Arlington. So one night, there's a knock at the door. They went to the door. This couple stand on the front porch, just run their car into the ditch. So as they were helping them get their car out, they found out it was Bonnie and Clyde. And they said, we've just been to Top of the Hill gambling. So this confirmed what an 84-year-old gangster from Top of the Hill told me and a 96-year-old ballerina. I want you to see who had in 2014 a distant cousin of Clyde Barrow, not long ago, distant cousin of Bonnie Parker. So I tried to pick out a few people that everyone had heard of that came to Top of the Hill. One, Ginger Rogers. She grew up in Fort Worth, graduated from Pascal High School. I had several people tell me they saw her tap dance in our tea garden. They had a way of rolling out a wooden floor in the overlook area. So I had a big miracle a number of years ago. We had to bank in from Fort Worth, a travel club. As I began to tell this story, this lady whispered to me, she said, there's someone here today that came to Top of the Hill. Well, I didn't think I was going to have anyone ever again because so much time had passed, but he was on the back row, and I went up to him and I found out it was 95. I said, when did you come in here? He said 36, 37, 38. I said, what did you do? He said, I tap danced, and I got this next photo from him. He's the guy on the right, his male partner who danced with him out there is on the left, and look at how young. And I filmed him that day, and I'm going to have to stop it when he starts talking about Sally Rand. How many men do we have in here? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I can't do it because I have mixed company, but I'm going to play it long enough so you know I'm not making up these stories. So
Jane Butts, right?
Jane Butts.
Okay. Share with them what your memories of Top of the Hill.
My memories?
Uh-huh.
Well, here's to many different times of tap dancing, but I followed Ginger Rogers for one time, and I also danced right behind Sally Rand.
This is where I'm going to have to stop it. He was waiting down below the overlook area waiting to perform. He looks up on the overlook and he sees Sally Rand performing with her feathers. And I did ask him a question, and I am going to share this with you. I said, did she have on a bodysuit? He went. This next man performed at Top of the Hill. You can tell he was blind. He was known as the Whistler. I met his son at a party in Dallas. He said, you know, this is what my dad's most known for. He's one of the first people to do this.
Oh,
So,
wow.
not Andy Griffith. So I've got several lists here of people that came to Top of the Hill, and I'm going to let you read over that. This has been 25 years of doing interviews. Okay, I'm going to put up the other one. Got a lot of church groups in. I had this one church group in. When I put up John Wayne's slide, this guy stands at attention, puts his cowboy hat over his heart, and said, my man, John Wayne. And I said he did gamble there. But I'm going to, since I'm limited time, talk about 2 key figures, a ballerina and a gangster. First about the ballerina, I had a lady come in, she brought 5 guests with her, and she danced at Top of the Hill with the Ruth Claire's Texas Rockets. The gal I met that day, this lady here, Beulah Adams. When I met her the first time, she was 84. She died not long ago at age 96. The gal next to her became Guy Waggoner, the rancher, one of his wives. There was W.T. Waggoner and his son, Guy Waggoner. And she wasn't his second wife, or his third wife, or his 4th wife, or his 5th wife, or his 6th wife, or his 7th wife, but his 8th wife. And the man there in the middle, Walter Winchell. And here's another photo of the group, and that's Willetta there. She said it was a young girls' dance group, and I said, how could parents let young girls come to top of the hill with what was going on? And she said, we came out during the day and performed ballet. And she recalled dancing for parties out there for Guy Waggoner, the rancher, Howard Hughes, Bonnie and Clyde. I said, what do you remember about Mr. Hughes? She said he had on a tuxedo with tennis shoes. But soon after she was out there, she went one evening to the river bottom of the Trinity in Fort Worth with a friend. He gets out of the car. She hears voices. He gets back in the car and they pulled away. She found out they'd just taken food to Bonnie and Clyde. So we got done for the tour. Everyone walked out the door, so Willetta came back in and she's whispering. She said, you know, I'm not the real star here today. And I said, who is? She said, my friend Millie that's with me from New York. I said, what's special about her? She said she's the last living cousin of Al Capone. So I had Al Capone's cousin there, Millie Freschetti. She was 83. So I asked Willetta that day if I could have something of hers for our collection. She said, well, I have 2 pair of ballerina slippers left. I'll let you have a pair. So I went over to Dallas to pick them up. I discovered she had a $3 to $5 million mansion in the historic district of Dallas. So I'm standing there looking to the lamp. This Victorian lamp or ballerina slippers were in the base of it, and we have it on display there. So I was looking all over her house at photos of her career. She's the lead dancer in all the groups. Some of their outfits have the big plumes on her head. One of my favorite pictures of her is this one. And she's the gal on the left. I had a lady in, she said, you know, my mom and dad were close friends with Lawrence Welk. She told me something funny about him, said in real life he didn't have much of an accent. And I looked it up, he was born in the United States, so most of that had to be put on. But anyway, Willetta, I get a call 6 months before she died, somebody asking about the Baghdad Club in Grand Prairie, and I knew she danced there. It looked like the Taj Mahal, so I called her. She said, yeah, we dance there early evening, then we'd come to top of the hill and do the same dance routine. She said Bonnie and Clyde would be at the Baghdad, follow them over here to the top of the hill. She said they did that so much. She said they could have done the dance routine. So she gave an interview for this book, Blood Aces, in this book. She said her first encounter with Bonnie and Clyde was in the tea garden at top of the hill. So I kept telling her over and over again, I said, I need to record your life. She told me several times a few more people are going to have to die before I do that. 84-year-old gangster told me the same thing. I didn't get the final interview with either one of them. So speaking of the gangster, it's Willetta, the dancer, and this gangster. So we were letting one of our missionaries that was in the area stay in the RV, and they went up to the tea garden one night, met this couple, Jack and Linda Poe. Well, Debbie got to talking with her, and she said, you need to talk to Mrs. Bryant. So I called him the next day, and I began to tell him about the book, Gamblers and Gangsters. Now, how many of you have got this book? Do you notice I changed the photo on the front so I could put it in my program? I put the car on the front. I know it doesn't quite look like the cover, but anyway, I was telling him about this book because there was a chapter in the book about us. And Ann Arnold came in for the tour, had to autograph our copy. She put to the Arlington Baptist College people, the good guys. But back to Jack Poe, he said, honey, I was one of those gangsters. Said age 9, I began to work with the horses. Age 13, I was moved to the casino. And he said it was my job to take care of every desire of the gambler, whether it's food, drink, or women. He said the same year he began to work in the casino, he was down the street in the place called the Bend, which was a motel cabin type thing. He was in the room with these people, but at the time he didn't know who they were. He was in the room with Bonnie and Clyde. He said, I was sitting on the bed playing cards with Bonnie Parker. Said every time I'd win a game, said she'd lean over and kiss me. And he told me she learned me how to kiss. I said, well, did they gamble, at top of the hill? He said, yes, I'm the one that went to Fred Browning and asked if it was okay if they came there to gamble. And he said that's fine to tell them leave their guns in the car. Soon after I met him, a writer from D magazine pulled in one day. And I got to telling him about Jack Pope. So he and the writer came out at the end of the month and got to share his story, which came out in this issue. And when his story came out, he got 5 threats from 5 different families if he ever mentions their names, because there's no statute of limitation on murder. I've been told things, horrific things that went on out there, that I've been sworn to secrecy. If I were to tell you everything I know, I'd have to worry about starting my car. So I don't go there, so I just tell people what he told me. He said, bad things happen to you if you worked at top of the hill and talked to people on the outside. He did. They found out about it, got him down, split his tongue with a knife. He said Gussie the cook sewed it together with needle and thread. And he said there were 3 bodies down on Rush Creek and one was still moving. So when I drive down Division, I go to the Rush Creek Bridge, I say to myself, 3 bodies and one was still moving. I think it's warped my mind working on this for 25 years. But anyway, I interviewed a lady standing beside the side entrance to the tea garden. She said, I was out here as a little girl with my dad. He got in a fight with a man, pulled out a gun, blew his face off. They hid his body in the tea garden until they could dispose of it. So we dedicate our marker May 17th, 2004, one of the most stressful days of my life, because everything that day, I mean, everything was on my shoulders. You people with the Historical Society know how it goes. But I'm a one-man operation, so this day I was responsible for the chairs, the pulpit, the sound system, the police directing the traffic, the top of the hill people, the historical people. And an hour before the ceremony at 2 o'clock, I get a call from Channel 8 News. I want to come out and do a story. And when the media comes out, I have to be the one to deal with them, and it's so not my thing. So far, we've gotten 2 calls from National Geographic. Inside Edition is called The Show Diggers. Last year, we had Paramount Studios in. But the last 7 or 8 years, we've been on Fox 4 News, Texas Country Reporter, Day Tripper, Nowhere But Texas, and the History Channel. But this day, I had to deal with Channel 8. So when I got down at the front gates, I started looking for the National Guard and American Legion, who I've been working with 2 weeks about doing our flag ceremony. They were supposed to be there at noon. I get down there at 1 to 2, and they're not there. Hundreds of people standing there staring at me with the program that says flag ceremony on it, and I had 5 minutes to do something. So the first thing I did was pray. Then I stopped, stepped to the side and grabbed these 3 people at random to carry the flags that day. The guy in the suit's our former Mayor Pluck. He got the Cowboys to move down the street from us. The guy I grabbed on the left came in 2 days later for the tour. And afterwards he mentioned Hell's Half Acre in Fort Worth. And the reason why I mentioned it is our founder, Dr. J. Frank Norris, shut it down almost single-handedly. And what it was, you know, it was a centralized location in Fort Worth, saloons, gambling, and brothels. He knew exactly where it used to be, so I grabbed my video camera. And as you listen to this, keep in mind, I didn't know the story of his childhood that day when I grabbed him. And I didn't know the big miracle that took place that day till 2 days later. So, here we go.
My name is Lanny Wood. I am 65 years old. As a young boy, I accompanied my father many times to the top of O'Hill Terrace. He was a bootlegger. He run whiskey from St. Louis and Kansas City, Missouri, with the underground elements of the area, and this was one of his deliveries. Many times I came to the top of the hill during the time that it was a gambling casino, and also I accompanied him to many areas in the old hills, half acre and south of downtown Fort Worth, the old saloons and the brothels and all that. Even when I was a wee lad, about anywhere from 4 to 6 years old. Later on, my father was convicted of second-degree murder because of some bad deals in bootlegging, and he spent about 7 years in Huntsville in the mid-30s.
So what kind, tell me about, you know, some of your clothing. I remember you telling me about a jacket.
Well, my dad had someone out in Beulah make my brother and I a coat, and the whole, they kind of like a top coat. The whole inside was had pockets all around the coat where my dad would place different half-pint bottles of whiskey in, and we would go around to the drugstores and other places to deliver the whiskey that had been ordered. And of course, all illegal whiskey, even though alcohol was legal in this area, this was illegal whiskey that we brought in from Canada and places like that. And the bootleg trade.
What'd you do with your life after you got a little bit older?
Okay, after I joined the United States Marine Corps when I was 15 years old. I spent several years in the Marine Corps. I spent 3 years in Vietnam, and then after that, I went to a Baptist church in Southside Fort Worth. Heard the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ, accepted Christ as my Savior. I was baptized that same night, and the following Monday, my wife and I felt led of the Lord to come out here to the top of the O'Hill Terrace, which was the Bible Baptist Seminary then, and we enrolled for Bible classes to prepare our Christian service.
And then what did you do after graduation?
Well, we graduated in May of 1973, and during the time of our studies at the Bible Baptist Seminary, Arlington Downs College, we felt the call to become missionaries in Brazil, and that's where we have served the Lord for the past 31 years.
So up until 2 years ago, he was still in Brazil serving as a missionary, getting ready to turn 81 when he died. But go back to this state, for me to choose him out of the hundreds of people there, not knowing the story of his childhood, look at what flag I gave him, the Christian flag. They started way back down the drive, they came forward with the flags. Can you imagine what was running through his mind that day, to be out there as a little boy with liquor bottles in his coat, come later as a student, later as a missionary. Now our founder, Dr. J. Frank Norris, and that was kind of covered in the video, paid the price. He was fighting the gambling crowd, he was fighting the liquor crowd. Now, did you understand our school started at First Baptist Church in 39, I'm sorry, First Baptist Church at the corner of 4th and Throckmorton in Fort Worth with 16 students, and then it changed the name to Bible Baptist Seminary, Arlington Baptist College, and now university. But he paid the price, and he had his home and church burned down 2 times, 1912, 1929. Here's the 29 fire, and he's standing right there. Guess where this happened? 3rd and Taylor, downtown Fort Worth. So I hope when you get there, that corner, and you see that, you might think back about this fire. Here's a threatening letter that he received. I'm going to let y'all read that. Everyone can read it. Our mayor, former Mayor Jeff Williams told me, he said, if it had not been for your founder, we wouldn't have the family-oriented entertainment that we have today in Arlington. Arlington would have been Las Vegas. But prophetic words, I went to a Historical Society meeting in Arlington over 10 years ago. 96-year-old Arlington native Bill Barton looked me up. At the time, I didn't know who he was. I later found out he was the architect for Arlington Downs. But he came up to me, he said, I went to a tent meeting Dr. Norris held here in Arlington in the mid-30s. This is what he heard him say. O'Hill Terrace is a blight on Tarrant County. One of these days, we're going to own the place. Well, I turned to Bill Barton. I said, you heard Dr. Norris say that with your own ears? And he said, yes. And Mr. Barton died 6 months later. So 25 years ago, when this story started to come together, our library sent down some of Dr. Norris's sermons, taken off these 16-inch records. We have 350 of these. Someone had taken 25 records and recorded them on cassettes. So I was looking through the cassettes, and I had a 14-year-old last week, didn't know what a cassette was, so I have to have those out now to show them. So anyway, I was looking through the cassettes and there was one there that said sermon on gambling. So I picked it up, I held it in my hand, and I prayed. I said, Lord, let him mention Top of the Hill, let him mention Fred Browning. And this is Dr. Norris recounting something that happened on the property. By a miracle, we found this recording on this record. So here we go.
Years ago, never mind how many years, time goes on, I said something about wide open gambling is running now, and if anybody wants to find it out, they can find it out. I'm going to broadcast this tonight so they can get hold of it. What do you think? Yeah, but you wouldn't do it. So I said it's running wide open, and I said, I know the places. I don't know what they're doing there, but I understood. Well, to the former grand jury, he's on to his award, never mind where it is. He was there. It caused me having a lot of trouble. He said, I caused him to have a lot of trouble. He had me summoned before the grand jury. I knew what they wanted, what they were going to do. Well, the grand jury, I looked at it, read those. Now I said, gentlemen, if you want to know the violation of law and gambling, I'll see if you get it. Yes, oh yes. Well, I said, now before I do that, I want this door locked, stay locked. I want every member of the grand jury to stay in here. I don't want anybody to come in here and go out. There was a restroom nearby, and I said, we're going to bring the meetings here. We were going to sit here and find out. And use the names of it. And I said, don't want anybody to touch that telephone now either. And I said, I'll name the officer that'll do the rating of this gambling place. The law is, if you find gambling material in a place, that's all spend a vacation in state condition. As I told you. Now, the constable that I was going to have to raid this place, I forget what his name is, lived out in Arlington, a good old country boy. I said, now before we go anywhere, any further, I want to call up a certain constable. You can hear it. And I called up this constable. I said, now, warrant is now being written for you to raid the Top of the Hill Terrace. He said, I said, the Top of the Hill Terrace. I said, this side of Arlington. Yes, I know where it is. All right. Now I said, you remain where you are. We are sending a man out with a special warrant for the Top of the Hill Terrace. And I got the man that I wanted to send it out by, and he wouldn't tell it. He went and gave it to him. The grand jury has asked you to raid the Top of the Hill Terrace. He did. It was the highest society gambling place. That's the crowd you need to get after. You need to raid the Four-Way Club. Another place you need to raid. Now don't you come and call and tell me, I know as much as I need to know. So he went out, he had some evidence around the place, went in, oh my. That was the women, men, so them all be present still. There's an old country constable. He didn't have more enough sense than just be brave. I sent out 2 large trucks of Beulah O'Keefe. Went in there and took all the tables, all the gambling paraphernalia, and loaded it on those 2 trucks and brought it into the grand jury. It broke up that place. And brought in the carloads of the men and women who were out there gambling. Brought them in for the grand jury. I saw them. They took these 2 truckloads of gambling paraphernalia down here to Beulah O'Keefe, and they were stored. What's the name of that company on that place? Some of you fellows know. I'm not so much you fellows do that. But what was his name? He became what's his name? If I saw it, if I could see the name, I'll tell you who it was. What's that? Browning, that's it, Browning. I don't mean if you went out there, but anyway, everybody knew who it was. What was his first name? Fred Browning. Fred Frank came to see me after the grand jury ended. Where is this dear Frank? I'm going to Huntsville. What you going to Huntsville for? You don't know why? He said, now, Betty, you can have my paraphernalia. You can have everything I got. And if you give me a chance, I'll go into some other business. I don't want to go to Huntsville. I said, no, it's what I did.
So what's ironic, today his statue's overlooking the drive of the place he vowed one day we would own. And that prediction came true in 1956 when we purchased the property. I've got this little thing I want to play. There's probably going to be a documentary about Top of the Hill, and it's just a few minutes long, so.
Lady, and she said, I came here, I saw Frank Sinatra, and that's a sacred confirmation. She said, I looked over his shoulder, and she saw Steve Martin, and Eddie Goodman played out here. Artie Harrison, the Groundskeeper,
There's a
oldest
statue.
son-in-law, he met by her here.
Why do you think preserving the history is so important?
Well, this is the only major piece of Arlington history left. That's one reason. But we have to know where we've come from. And I'm so glad, as we as a Baptist University can tell this story after waiting almost 50 years. And what a story it is.
What is the one thing you want people to take away from the history of ADU and the Top of the Hill Terrace?
I think seeing the hand of God for a founder vowing one day at a tent meeting we would own the place, and that taking place in 1956 when we purchased the property. And I think our story is really a redemption story in this takeaway. So I'm watching the clock, so I've got a few more things to share then, so I have to have a little time. Some of the historic structures still standing at top of the hill, the front gates. If you come out there today, this is what you're going to see. Everything's original from top of the hill, even up to the Scotty Dog weather vane on the guard tower. Here's the entrance to the tea garden. And the gazebo is still there, and those gates there. And this is where all the entertaining took place during Top of the Hill days. The horse barn's still standing. 12 stalls. The third stall from the left had a tunnel that came out of there. And the students today, we've used as classrooms since 1956. When the school bought the property, we went in, hauled off hay, tore down the stalls, put up partitions, had chapel and classes there, used a casino building. So the students today, until they had to take the Top of the Hill tour, they don't realize they're having classes in what used to be a horse farm. The Royal Ford Stable, that horse was bred to a prize racehorse, bred to horse named Can Fly. The Rafale Hill Fly beat Seabiscuit in 1940. Red Pollard rode Seabiscuit, and he also rode horses for Fred Browning, so he had to be out there. Here's the well house from top of the hill. They're down right now trying to get down to Fred Browning's well so we can start using the water to water the grounds. This is a building that caught the water. Paul Fuchs, who does the Big A's of Arlington that you see live whole underground system of tunnels. and rooms. And matter of fact, when the History Channel came out, they brought a guy in with ground penetrating equipment, and he was taking it between the administration building where the house used to be and the tea garden, and in passing, he said, you got a big room under the parking lot. And y'all know what dowsing rods are. When you have no money, that's where you find things, you know, with those rods. So I got the rods out and I picked that up. Sure as day, this huge room under the parking lot. Looks like we have 2 tunnels coming in this side, 2 coming out the bottom. And if you've got gambling going on, you have to have a brothel, you know. So when the school moved out there, they were going to turn the brothel into the girls' dorm. And so they started cleaning it out, and there were gowns on the floor, and Dr. Oldham told his wife, said, I want all these things thrown away. Well, she secretly kept 2 things. She kept the mirror on the wall, and she kept an article of clothing that she wore as pastor's wife at Calvary Baptist Grand Prairie. It was a black velvet cape from Neiman Marcus. And I tell everybody, I don't know of another Baptist institution that has a prostitute's cape on display. But I felt like it was okay to display her since she wore it to church. It's been sanctified. So I got out my rods one day. I thought, I'm going to decide once and for all, do we have a tunnel going to the brothel? So I got walking across the parking lot. All of a sudden they crossed. I turned. Then I followed it, and it took me to the foundation of the brothel. So I go into the business office. I'm all excited. I said, we've got a tunnel going to the brothel. And then I stopped, and I just swallowed hard, and I said, here I am, a pastor's wife, getting excited that we have a tunnel going to the brothel. But if we can prove to the city we have this underground system, I think we're going to open it all up for tourism in the cities, getting ready to bring in this high-powered equipment, drones and everything to check it out. And I think they're going to be surprised what we do have underground. So does anyone have any questions?
I used to watch that show. I loved it. It was Brent Hall.
Yeah,
Texas
Hall Historical.
Yes, and I saw him out there, and I was looking around for you.
Right, that's when we were on the History Channel.
Yeah, well, that was a good show.
Oh, yes, it was.
Still on.
I was going to, let me just see if I can turn this around here. This was the last slide. I'm going to hold it up here. Can you see this family? Has a connection with the top of the hill today. All the males in this photo became bootleggers. One of them had a taxi service in Clarksville, Tennessee. From the taxi, sold moonshine and Bibles, and he got to thinking, this is not right. So he quit selling the Bibles, kept selling the moonshine because he could make more money. Right here, this little girl, that's my mama, and I'm 10 years into the working on top of the hill. I found out I'm the granddaughter of a bootlegger, and God's placed me there to tell that story.
Oh.
So I'm going to cry right now, but I do know God's placed me there to tell the story. And my time, you know, I'm running out of time, and I've got 2 more minutes. When Mayor Jeff Williams, I had his Sunday school class, and he invited me to City Hall afterwards. And I go walking in, the mayor's here, the president of the Visitor Bureau across from me, and he looked at me and he told me, he said, the city wants to buy the building where the casino was, our kitchen walls are the casino walls. And they wanted to take the floor down 4 feet. They wanted to bring in a professional to film my program, and they wanted to raise money to get an underground system. So when I gained my composure, I looked at him, I said, if you do that, we're going to need new administration building, cafeteria. And he said, we realize that. And I looked at both of them. I said, I'm getting ready to turn 70. There's no one in the wing to take this. I just thought I'm going to do the tours till I drop in my grave, and the story's going to stop. And they said, we don't want that to happen. So we had 2 meetings with the city. COVID happened. Had a conference call. The mayor said, we're out of money. So I'm starting over, but Jim Ross is on board with bringing the equipment out and figuring out once and for all, do we have this underground system? So anyone have any questions?
Wow.
Pretty exciting times there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to do a picture of the Historical Society with you and you
Okay.
holding your book.
Okay.